All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Today, we're going to be talking about how modern medicine hijacked pregnancy. Oh, interesting, huh?
Such a great title.
Since Kate is pregnant, we thought we would bring on Genevieve Howland from Mama Natural.
Mama Natural? You always say natural, like
Mama Natural?
a la natural, like Target.
Mama.
You fancy everything up, don't you?
I don't know why. Mama Natural. Mama Natural. And so we're going to be talking about pregnancy and everything to do with giving birth naturally. And she's got a great website. If you guys have not checked it out, mamanatural.com is the place to go.
I don't know who's not heard of her, but...
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's everywhere.
Yeah, she's everywhere. She's doing great. Kate just bought one of her courses. She's got a whole course on natural pregnancy and natural birth. So
and let me tell you, the best little
awesome
box of affirmation cards that are so lovely every day to pick one and just kind of read the back and soak it in and resonate with just remaining calm during this whole process of being pregnant and getting ready to birth. And it's just, it's beautiful. She's done such a great job. I encourage everyone to get on her site and check out her stuff.
Awesome stuff.
Awesome to have her.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So let me turn her microphone up. And Genevieve, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. Like we were saying before when we were not recording, I've known about your work for so long now, and I'm glad that that you sort of showed up back up in our feed so that we can contact you. You're doing some really cool things on your website, Mama. I keep wanting to say Mama Natural, but it's Mama Natural, isn't it?
I like that. It's kind of fancy. Mama Natural.
Mama Natural.
Yeah. Well, I think the timing is perfect given what's going on in your family life. So I think this interview will be just really poignant, and you guys can really speak from where you're at in your life. So I'm excited.
It couldn't be any better. And we have to tell our listeners, some don't know our news that we found out last Tuesday. We are actually having twin boys.
Twin boys.
So we are going to have our hands full.
And we weren't even trying, so it's
double blessing.
Double blessing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's pretty stoked. Do you have a lot of friends who have twins, Genevieve?
I really don't, but I do have family members. So my grandmother had twins. Two of my cousins had twins. My aunt had twins, so they definitely run heavily. And actually, my husband, Michael, his mom is a twin.
No way.
So I always wanted twins. I thought a boy-girl twin, one and done. You're golden,
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing. I know it has its own challenges,
sure.
But, I'm just curious, were you actually on any B vitamins or folic acid or anything that might have, sometimes that can be correlated with twins.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's interesting. Not the folic, but the liquid B12 was all I was taking, and I took that every day regularly.
But you weren't taking folic acid before we got pregnant? No, okay.
Yeah. So, maybe. But, I've been working through some, I'd say the last 3-4 years, pretty intense stuff with tons of supplementing and tons of detoxing, just getting really as healthy as I could, knowing we were probably going to do this one day. And then on top of it, maybe it's the bees, and then it runs in our family too. So we're kind of
oh, that's awesome.
They were just meant to be, right?
Yeah, definitely.
When God has something, and we're like you, we're like, oh man, a boy and a girl would have been great, but
I think every woman kind of wants that, right? Is that kind of a
one and done?
Yeah, but see, you know what? There's actually blessings to having just one sex, because then they just have a companion for life,
Right.
And I have a brother, and I'm very close to him actually, but I've seen it's not quite as common. You know what I mean? So if you have a sister, there's nothing like the bond between two sisters or two brothers.
Totally.
And so for them to have each other and just to be able to identify so much with, I don't know, I just see it so much with Paloma and Griffin that, Paloma will be like, look, Griffin, I got this new play set, and they'll start playing, and before you know it, it's turning into death and armies and shootings, and you know what I mean? And Paloma's like, wait a minute, I wanted to play Princess Food, and I don't know, just something completely different, and my son always takes it to this, violent conclusion. So I can see where, just the compatibility of play isn't quite as strong, at least with my two kids.
Wow.
Now your princesses don't have heads, but that's okay.
Are you planning on having it anymore?
We've been praying about it, and I'm 42, so at this point it's kind of one of my grandmothers did have a baby at 41, and then the other one had one at 42. So who knows, if God wants to give us another one. But you know, at this point, I'm so grateful for 2 healthy kids,
Sure.
and to be able to help a lot of other, you know, I always say like this book that we wrote was kind of like my third baby. I didn't realize how much of a process it would be and how challenging it would be, but I do feel like it was my third baby. So like I did kind of have another baby in that sense, but we'll see.
Yeah. Was that book something that just had to happen because it was so like people were just inundating, like just were you getting so many emails and so many people coming at you wanting more information? It was just better to compile it in more of a book form, or did you feel like you really wanted to?
It was actually funny. Like years ago, I remember we were, some publisher had reached out to us. It was like a small house and they're like, oh, have you ever considered writing a book? And I think at that time they were, mentioning like a recipe book or a blogging book, or, you know, they just had different ideas. And my husband and I were just thinking about it. I'm like, the only book I would ever write would be, you know, pregnancy week by week from a natural perspective, because I felt like it was just such a hole in the marketplace. Like when I was pregnant, there was nothing like that out there. And I love to like research and be informed. And I got a bunch of different pregnancy books, but they were all very conventional, very traditional, kind of almost more fear-based. And so that just planted a seed. I'm like, okay, if we ever write a book, that is the book we want to do. Yeah. And I also would really love to do baby's first year in more of a week-to-week format. Just again, I like things in like smaller chunks because there's some amazing books for pregnancy and for natural childbirth that have been written by some really incredible people. But I like, you know, there hadn't been something that was done in a weekly format where it's just really easy, some, you know, basic call to actions, some things you can focus on just that week. Yeah. And I don't know about you, Kate, but like when I'm pregnant, I'm like, what week am I? You know, like how big is my baby? Like every week is such a milestone and you're getting that much closer. And sometimes it feels like it's taking forever. And other times you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm 24 weeks and I'm going to be doing this soon. And, you know, so I like the smaller chunks of content.
Sure.
So I do want to do baby's first year at some point, but I kind of want to take a little bit of a break because it was a lot of work.
Oh,
I imagine.
I don't blame you. I always think of that Albert Einstein quote, like, and I won't get it right, I'll butcher it, but it's something like, if there's a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written, it's, you know, time for you to write it kind of thing. Exactly. And I think that is so neat because you're the first person I went to. I mean, the day we found out, I thought I was eating too much quinoa and I was just puffy. And after 5 weeks, I'm like, I don't think this is quinoa.
I don't think it was the quinoa from 5 weeks
quinoa,
ago.
Baby. So we went straight to your site and did it's so cool to have even just your pregnancy calculator. And that was a little bit different than the other ones out there. And immediately, I have to say, I mean, from your site to a couple other sites I was on, I just felt like I came back to yours because it just brought me peace. It just felt like a big hug. I mean, you've done a really good job of making people feel super loved and comfortable and really dispelling a lot of fear. So thank you for writing that book, and I cannot wait to read it. So, and I'm sure.
Yeah, we sent one. It is in the mail to you.
Thank you.
So you'll be getting it soon.
I've been meaning to get that. So
and you know what's really cool for people that are listening too is that you know you have the same sort of idea with an email that goes out once. I think it's a once a week thing.
Yeah. So we have a baby. Pregnancy. And now we're working on baby's first year, so my mind is on that. But yeah, so it's a pregnancy week by week. We have it via email. You can get it via text. We also just launched it via Facebook Messenger. So it's a little bit more chatty. There's like GIFs in it. It's really kind of fun. In fact, when I was going through it, I'm like, this is so much better than the emails because it's just like more fun. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, it's more interactive.
All that content free for moms, so they can sign up and they can just, you know, for me, when I was pregnant, I signed up for a ton of different sites and I wanted like that weekly email to be like, okay, here's how big baby is. Here's what you might be feeling. I also love to know, like, this is what's developing in your child.
Yeah.
And that actually, like in our book, I was super like specific about this, but I'm like, okay, each week I want to create a recipe that supports literally the body systems that are being created in the child that week. So that was probably one of my favorite parts of the book was just researching that and finding the right nutrients for each week and then coming up with a recipe. But yeah, so you can sign up for that on my website, totally free. And it's just some good, helpful information.
Yeah. Well done. And I have to say, like I mentioned, those affirmation cards are so pretty. I want to frame them.
I know that woman is incredible. She actually did some artwork for our nursery. And I was like, I wonder if she would design these because she just is so gifted. And she did such a phenomenal job.
You guys were the dynamic duo. Cause I mean, even obviously the words on the back are so meaningful and then they're so beautiful. It's like, I wonder, brain, the front and the back, but I can't separate them.
I know, like a lot of midwives were like, we went to a conference with a bunch of midwives. A lot of them bought the cards and they actually are going to like pin them up, like kind of like on a clothesline or something like that in their office, just because they like the art, you know, and like the little, you know, affirmation too. But
that is a great idea, and I should do that. You just gave me an idea for a baby shower. That's perfect. Like you could put those up, and I think people reading those and connecting with those is a really beautiful thing. So.
Yeah.
Well done. Go ahead, Jay.
No, when you wrote in with the title, I thought this was so cool. You wrote how modern medicine hijacked pregnancy and birth and how we can take it back. I just thought that was so cool because, I mean, as you know, and everyone knows that listens to this show and to, you know, other shows like it, you know, there's so much fear going around. Fear is sort of how everything is sold, how products are sold, how media viewership time is sold. It's all about fear and getting people to be afraid so that they can sort of get people onto whatever solution that they're promoting. But I just love how you are dispelling myths and taking fear out of people because you're right. I mean, medicine did hijack pregnancy. You know?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, a lot of your listeners might not know my history, but I was like a junk food junkie. I was never really thinking I would go down this like wellness health path. But I finally realized like I have to stop overeating, and I was really addicted to sugar. And so I kind of went through this journey of cleaning up my diet, but then it just kind of created a ripple effect into a lot of other things in my life, basically, like cleaning supplies and makeup and just anything that I would use. I'm like, I started to think about, well, what's really in this? Just like I did with the food. And so when I got pregnant, I wasn't thinking, I literally thought I was probably going to have a C-section because my mom did. And, you know, it's really amazing how much what your mother does influences you, even if it's subconscious, because my mom also was a big advocate for breastfeeding. So she always talked about how much she loved breastfeeding me. And I remember when I was a little girl, one of my family friends came over, and I was older. So she was an older mom. So she had her babies probably in her late 30s, early 40s. And she just would whip out her boob and start breastfeeding her child in front of me. And I was probably 8 years old. And she gave me such a gift because she normalized it. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, this is how babies are fed. So so it's so interesting. As I walked into pregnancy, I thought I'm probably going to have a C-section and I'm definitely going to nurse. And I hadn't even, you know, gotten even close to being, you know, I just had gotten the positive pregnancy test.
How funny.
So it really does influence you. So then and of course media does too, and Hollywood and all the movies and stuff. But then when I started researching it, I realized like, wow, there are so many health benefits for baby, for mom. And we really are designed to give birth. Like the majority of women can have uncomplicated, low intervention vaginal births, you know, and yet the way birth is positioned in the U.S., you would think it's the lucky few.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And my movement is never about like, you know, judging moms or being, you know, because the thing is, birth is a mystery. It's so much bigger than us. We have no idea how it's going to unfold when we're walking into birth, no matter how much preparation we do. And so it's just about how can we optimize whatever unfolds, whether it's a cesarean, whether it's a natural birth, you know what I mean, or a vaginal birth. Like, how can we make it the best for baby and for mom? And that's what I try to share with moms, no matter how it unfolds, and to really embrace their birth, because every birth is like a fingerprint. It's going to look differently. But there are some things that you can do when you're pregnant that can increase your odds for a great birth. There are some things you just want to know and to practice, and things that are not being done in our hospitals, like simple things like just skin to skin, you know, contact after giving birth. This is something in studies that have shown it helps to regulate baby's body temperature, their breathing patterns. It helps with their hormone levels, their stress hormones. And yet half of U.S. hospitals actually practice this or encourage this. So that's something that's so simple. It doesn't matter how your baby came into this world, but you could practice skin-to-skin contact with your baby after you give birth. Things like delayed cord clamping. This is another thing that, again, studies are showing that this really increases babies' iron stores. It gives them back a third of their blood supply. It showed in studies they're showing there's lower risks of respiratory distress, and they're even showing studies that affects their motor and social skills later in life. Okay, if they have these delayed cord clamping, and again, most hospitals aren't doing this, and this is something very simple that you could request to let the cord stop pulsating and then clamp it. So things like that. That's what drives me crazy, and that's my motivation is just for more moms to know about their choices and to know about simple things that they can do that's going to benefit their babies, that's going to benefit them.
That's so good.
Have you heard a lot of people that have requested things where the hospital doesn't go with their wishes, or is that something that it's so funny as the mom, you think that you'd have this is my list and don't take my baby away and shoot it up with something. But do you hear a lot of negative stuff, or is it more do you think that they're waking up and letting the mom be the mom and make those decisions, hopefully?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think with things like skin to skin contact or delayed cord clamping, they're definitely open to it, you know, and even for moms to try for, a natural unmedicated birth. There's hospitals though, with the, fetal monitoring, some are you have to have it constantly. Others will let you do it intermittently. And then I see a lot of, discrepancies with VBACs, and that doesn't, there's some circumstances where VBACs are not going to be the safest and best choice for moms, but in the majority of cases, VBACs are very preferable, first of all, but also the odds are really with the mom that she is going to be successful. So that's an area where I think there could be better education from the hospital perspective, because I've seen a lot of pushback for moms that have wanted to try for VBACs. But again, I find if they go into their doctor's appointment and they have the facts, they have the studies, they are, coming in with just an open mind and with a nice attitude, that they're actually having good results, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's great.
I like, because like you said, especially women in the natural world have an idealistic idea of how they want to have. Melissa, on our last podcast, who runs rawpaleo.com, and she wanted to have, a natural birth and all these things. I think, did she have a C-section?
She was 2 weeks late and had no amniotic fluid left, and they rushed her into a C-section, which is the last thing she wanted.
Yeah, the very thing that she did not want and was sort of propagate against her whole life, she ended up having. And I think that it's as you get closer and as you start growing in a spiritual way, and you just sort of let go, you try your best, but then you kind of just let go.
Let God, because there's nothing you can do at some point.
Yes. Yeah. Birth humbles you. It literally takes you to the edge of yourself, and it's just something you have to surrender to. So again, there are things that you can do to really help increase your odds, and that's what I'm for, because those are things you quote unquote can control. But once you do all your footwork, the rest is just going for the ride. You are literally going on a ride, and it's something that's so much bigger than you. And anything, no matter what happens, barring something obviously very awful, which is so rare. But even with a cesarean, you can do things that make it more quote unquote natural and make it more beneficial for the baby, more beneficial for the mom. So you're never doomed, no matter how your birth unfolds. There's always ways to optimize it and make it feel more natural. So
that's empowering for people, and even for me to hear, because you think this twin thing, you're like, oh gosh, you think your odds are going to be a little higher.
Just so both of my cousins I believe both of them had vaginal births with
Did
their
they?
twins. So
sweet, thank you.
Yeah, because twins are generally smaller, and the first one is kind of the trailblazer, and he'll come down, and then a lot of times the second one will be breech, but that's perfectly okay because you've already been stretched from your first one, so they don't. Most hospitals will not freak out about that.
Sweet.
And then your second little guy will come flying down, and good to go.
That sounds like fun.
So you really did tap into. I remember with our first pregnancy, we were at a childbirth education course, and the woman's like, okay, why don't you write down what your ideal birth will be like, and draw a little image of it and stuff. And I still have this. So Michael, it was both for the husband and for the the pregnant partner.
Yeah.
And so Michael wrote this whole thing where it was okay, she'll start labor at 8 a.m. and we'll start to progress. Then at peak at 3 o'clock, and then she'll deliver. at 4 p.m. and then we'll have dinner and then we'll go to bed. And it was like this whole thing. And I was not even, I was 27 hours. I was like, by the end, I was like begging for an epidural, for a C-section. I was literally like telling the midwife, I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed. And when I wake up, I will deliver the baby. You know, this is when I'm like in full-blown labor. And she's like, no, you cannot do that. And so I ended up needing like a couple hits of Pitocin to actually push my baby out. And it just was like, what was that? You know, it was so mind-boggling. And so that's also like my motivation to having the birth course that we, you know, have for moms and doing the book is like just trying to prepare moms for this incredible marathon because it's been so locked away and sterilized and hidden. And, you know, if I would have seen that woman who was breastfeeding her baby give birth naturally, that would have been really impactful, you know? But think about that. Have you ever seen a woman give birth?
Yeah,
Kate,
no.
have you been
No, I
lucky
have
enough
not. I haven't.
I mean, this is the common thing.
Yeah.
Like, most of us have not seen women give birth.
Right.
And that is huge. And that's not the way it's historically been for thousands and thousands of years. So I think just bringing it into the psyche, you know, of the United States, like, this is birth. It's messy. It's primal. It's unpredictable. It's bloody. It's beautiful. It's sacred. And just seeing too, like in our birth course, I mean, some moms have incredible first time births. They're done in 6 hours and, you know, it just was unfolded beautifully. And then others go on for 48 hours. It's absolutely intense and hard and they want to give up and it's brutal. You know what I mean? So again, it's such a mystery how it's going to unfold for each person. But I'm so grateful. That's my favorite part in our Facebook group is all the moms that share their stories.
Yes, it's so empowering.
So we actually have like the largest online. You can go to mamanatural.com and you can actually upload your birth story with a picture. And I love it because it's so many different stories and so many different outcomes and so many different ways, these babies are brought into the world. Yeah. And they all have a voice and they all are just as valid and worthy and sacred.
Yeah, which I'm so thankful for because if everybody was the same, you'd feel ridiculous if you were the one that was like, what's happening? I mean, it's great to talk to a bunch of different, I have many friends who've had all different, like same thing. I had a friend who had her kid natural in 2 hours, no drugs. Second one was like 48 hours, it's like, and it's okay because it is awful, but everyone has such a different story and you connect with different parts of that and you go, I can do this no matter what. But I have to say, it is really funny what we've been guarded from. Like, I remember that the only time I had an option growing up to watch a birth was during, like, the sex ed stuff in junior high. And they show you videos and stuff. My mom signed me out of it. She didn't want me seeing it. You know what I mean? So it's like, talk about a whole other level of trying to protect, it just blows my mind. And then
from birth and death, we're so separated. From birth and death,
we're so shielded from this stuff. And it's just part of, what God's planned for us. But the other thing that cracked me up is we live right next door to my 95-year-old grandpa, and his mom got pregnant with him at like 40, I think 1 or 2, which was, back in the day, a really big thing. And she was so embarrassed that they moved from like Long Beach area up to Canada to like get away from people so she wouldn't have this embarrassment of a pregnancy.
Wow.
Had the baby and came back when he was like 5. And I'm like, wow, things have changed so much.
Wow.
And that's his story though. Like, he was brought into the world with an embarrassment. And I thought, isn't this crazy how, and it was embarrassing to be an older mom. And so we've come a long way, it's really encouraging to me to hear you talk about even just some older moms, and there's some benefits of being a little older. We've done some research and seen some really cool articles of just being an older mom, and for a few reasons, for your body and for your hormones, and also just for your life experience going into it. So hopefully we won't screw them up too much.
I mean, sometimes I'm always like, I wish I had my babies like in my early 20s, but I was such a mess. Like there is no way I could have
No.
But I was not emotionally and spiritually ready to have children.
Exactly.
So, we have our babies at just the right time. And I had great pregnancy and birth. I had Griffin when I was 35 and Paloma when I was 38. And I had awesome pregnancies, births. Everything was great, normal. And
that's so good to hear. And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
So what are some ideas that we can cover for women that want to have this sort of intervention-free birth, like in terms of preparation during the pregnancy? And it probably, like some of the things we've been doing and practicing, go long before even conception. So
Yeah.
Like, what's the time frame, and what are your ideals for women, do you think?
Sure.
And men.
Well, I think, just living a clean, good lifestyle, you know what I mean? If you want to create an environment just for a healthy pregnancy, just, cleaning up your diet. Your routine, so beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, just keeping your toxic load as low as possible is obviously ideal.
Yeah.
Because we already are faced with so many toxins as it is, that we don't want to be adding to that burden just through those types of products we're using. And nowadays we're so lucky. There's so many green products. There's so many, things, even at like Walmart, you can find this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
nowadays.
It's kind of crazy, huh? I know.
So yeah, just like even what you wash your, your clothes in. It's so interesting because my son will have his friends come over, and I literally their little kids that come over with him, like his little friends, their clothes reek
of
like
detergent?
Downy or I don't know what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I used to love that smell. When I was like in my early 20s, I thought that was amazing. I always wanted all my clothes to smell so good and
clean.
But we know that that's actually very toxic. Totally. And so things like that, just cleaning up all the chemical stuff. I mean, you guys, I'm sure your listeners are up to speed with that. And just good nutrition. I think, really a lot of good proteins and fats and also healthy, carbs, just like a well-balanced diet. And
for men and women, probably, right?
What's that?
For men and women at this point.
Yeah, for men and women.
Everybody.
Absolutely. And then just looking at like your alcohol content, consumption and even coffee, just trying to keep those things
to a minimum.
Look at cutting back or just getting a little bit more moderate place so that if you do, get pregnant, you are in a good situation, basically.
For sure.
But then once they're pregnant, I think it's really about, again, good nutrition, obviously, and really educating themselves. So getting into a birth course, getting around like-minded moms, getting books, about pregnancy and healthy pregnancy, healthy diet. And I think too, like just being active throughout your pregnancy, which is really hard in your first trimester when you feel terrible and you can like barely get out of bed. But even if it's just getting outside and making yourself walk around the block a couple of times just to get that fresh air, to get the sunshine and just to keep moving your body. And I think I have a whole chapter like in my book about this. Even though there are not studies that tie doing certain pelvic exercises with better births.
Yeah.
I just think intuitively it makes sense. And if you think about, it is shown through studies that births are longer, harder, and more challenging today than they used to be, 50 years ago. And there's lots of reasons for that. But I think some of it is our modern lifestyle that, a lot of women, at least for me when I was pregnant, especially with my first kid, I was driving to a job every day. I was sitting at a computer all day. I would get back into my car, drive another 45 minutes to get home. And then I was so exhausted that I would just plop on a big cozy recliner and watch TV or read or talk to friends or, hang with my husband or whatever. And if you think about that, like for your pelvis, that's not the greatest positioning for the day, right? I mean, and that's the thing with my second birth, it was so much better, so much faster. And some of that is just usually the nature of second births anyway. But I was running around, I was going to the park, I was going to the zoo, I was squatting, I was picking Griffin up. I was so much more active.
Just naturally, yeah.
Just thinking about like, and so the thing is, again, it's not about all or nothing. Like a lot of women do need to work. They are in office jobs. That's just what they have to do. So can you switch out your desk seat for a medicine ball or a birthing ball or whatever you want to call those, but those big inflatable balls and sit on that. Even if you can only do it for a couple hours a day, that's going to help engage your core. It's going to keep your pelvis a little bit more open and balanced. Can you, even if you're in your car, can you put there's little supports you can use for your car seat that can help if you have a long commute. Go to chiropractor throughout your pregnancy if you can afford it, especially after I would say 20 weeks. There's something called the Webster Technique that specializes in pregnant moms, basically. So it's very safe and it just keeps your whole pelvic floor and all of those muscles that support your pelvis open, balanced, aligned. And that's really important for, just baby's positioning and just how you're going to feel walking into birth. So I would say that's something. So even like when you did work, when I worked in corporate America, it was like, okay, at lunch, I'm going to walk around the office park a couple times, or I'm just going to try to move my body, like get up and go talk to coworkers more often. I'm going to go to the bathroom every hour, which you have to do anyways by the end of pregnancy. But just trying to move your body as much as you possibly can within the confines of your day. Yeah. So that's something that they can do. And then for nutrition, I find, a higher amount of protein. And that was actually, I remember hearing that in my first childbirth education course, like, oh, eat protein. And I was like, yeah. I eat protein. It's not a big deal. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. Like, I get it. I get it in my daily diet, but I wasn't real concerned about getting 80 grams or 100 grams like some, practitioners recommend. Anyways, long story short, I got to be, I think I was 34 weeks and I did start to get a little swelling in my ankles in the morning. So I would wake up and there was a little bit of swollen, tissue in my ankles. And then I would go for my morning walk and then it would go away. But I remember seeing that, my body is reacting. You know what I mean? Like there's something going on. So anyways, fast forward with my second pregnancy. Now I'm 3 years older, probably a little heavier. And I, for whatever reason, when I got pregnant with Paloma, I was like cave woman. I craved meat and milk and anything with protein. I was almost like on the Atkins diet in my first trimester. I was trying to get the carbs in because I know that that's important too, but I just was craving it. So anyways, long story short, I was definitely getting 80 or 100 grams of protein. I had zero swelling.
Wow.
So I really got to see, wow, protein does help to build the blood volume. It helps to support your body with all this extra blood and it can help with the edema. So, so that's something, be sure you're getting good protein. And sometimes it's hard, so that's where gelatin or, healthy protein powders or, Greek yogurt or things like that are just, higher in protein that you can sneak in or put into various meals, are really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is good because sometimes, the thought of meat just grosses you out. Like certain times you're like, ugh.
Well, remember Melissa, who was just on the show, was talking about her. I think one of her midwives or something was recommending the Dr. Brewers pregnancy diet. Is that the name of it?
Yep.
And I think he talks a lot about that same kind of thing with a lot of protein, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have a little section in the book about that. So yeah, Dr. Brewer, he had a lot of success with women that had toxemia, that had preeclampsia. And now they're showing in studies that it's not necessarily, it's more tied to the way the placenta is formed and stuff like that. It can also be an immune issue with the preeclampsia, but it certainly can't hurt. And for some moms, it literally does the trick. You know what I mean? People that are having this blood pressure that's getting elevated, they boost up their protein and it starts to come down. So it certainly can't hurt. It's great for baby. You're basically creating life, you know what I mean? And protein is the building blocks of life. So yeah, so he's big into, his diet was big into protein. He wanted, I think it was 80, at least 80, but more 100 to 120 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
And then also unrestricted salt use.
That's so much.
So not going on a low sodium diet. But allowing your body to, I think the greatest for salt for most women, for most normal pregnancies, low risk, it's just salt to taste. Your body has an innate ability to kind of regulate the salt. And it's interesting, even with kids, one of them likes more salt than the other. So it's okay, for whatever reason, they need more adrenal or mineral support. They like more of the salt. That's fine, So the body has an innate wisdom, I think, in a lot of cases. So just trusting that and just salting your food, with good, I love the Himalayan, high mineral sea salt, or salt, and just kind of salting to taste. But that was controversial because a lot of people have said, oh no, go low salt, low sodium, especially if you have high blood pressure. So obviously that's kind of a case by case situation. That you got to talk to your doctor about.
What do you think in your experience in just looking at different women before they give birth and during pregnancy and pre-pregnancy? What are some of the things that you're seeing? How sometimes, Kate, you and I will go on the beach trail or something and we'll see women holding their cell phones on their breasts,
Yeah.
What are some things that are just sort of stick out like that to you that you wish you could just be get on a soapbox? Women are doing
I know.
that are bad for themselves.
Putting their laptop on their stomach or
obvious stuff to us.
Oh gosh.
But
Gosh, it's hard to say because I don't Let me think about it. So when it comes to pregnancy and stuff, I just think, having a good pregnancy diet, I know it's a very common thing when moms get pregnant, they can want to overindulge a little bit, and just eat for two, kind of that attitude, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I mean, some of it is like you do need a lot of nutrition when you're pregnant, and we do get hungrier, and that's by design. But just making as best a choice as you can. So even if you do want to indulge with some sweets and things like that, just keep it more to a minimum. Be sure you're getting your good nutrition in first. Get things without the dyes. I mean, that's the thing that drives me crazy. It's just seeing like people eating, colored Jell-O or Twinkies or things that are so deprived of good nutrition.
Right.
And the thing is, we're so blessed. I mean, there's so many healthier options out there for indulgence, for treats. I mean, they make healthy ice cream nowadays. They make, you know what I mean? I mean, even if you want to have cookies, just make them from homemade, make homemade cookies or have your mom do it if you're too tired.
Yeah, exactly.
But use real ingredients, eggs, butter, healthy flours, things like that. So I think that's probably something that can sometimes irk me. Like, don't drink Diet Coke when you're pregnant, please.
Yeah,
just
I know, right?
Something else, have a kombucha or something. But, obviously, people are going to do what they're going to do, and you just can try to share the information and, let go of the results, I guess.
It seems like in my, just looking around and being in the alternative health kind of world for a long time, one of the things that I see that I just wish people knew more about is this idea of the EMF radiation in cell phones and, testing stuff like baby monitors and things like that where, or even like Kate was just saying, putting a laptop right on your stomach, it's amazing that, this stuff isn't really looked at or considered or.
No, that's a great point. I actually have a chapter in my book on this.
Oh, cool.
And I think my publisher was like, are you really wanting to do a chapter on EMF? Like, that sounds like UFOs. Like,
right.
Really? But I was like, I'm just going to put it in there. And the thing is, like, there's been mixed studies. There's, it's not 100% conclusive. But I think, again, just like they are with any kind of herb or even a supplement. I remember reading somewhere place that was like, be cautious with magnesium when you're pregnant. And I'm like, what do you guys, that's just a very gentle mineral. I mean, granted, you don't want a mega dose on it.
Right.
But I mean, what I'm trying to say is so much of the medical world is so hyper vigilant about being ultra conservative about even having something like dandelion root when you're pregnant. You know what I mean? Something that's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years by pregnant moms. That it's just interesting that, if we're going to be extra precautious, let's do it with EMFs too. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing, like, you don't have to get an ultrasound every time you go in for a visit, for the most part, unless you have a very high risk pregnancy or something like that. But, if you want to go by the evidence, ultrasounds do not improve maternal or baby outcomes. So they're really not evidence-based. They are very good for bonding. I don't know if you guys had when you had your midweek or mid-pregnancy scan when you found out, right? You're having twin boys. Like, it does bond you to your babies in a different way, than just knowing
real.
That your belly's growing.
And even for me as well, just being the guy, like, knowing there's two and knowing they're boys or knowing if they were girls, like just knowing the number. I don't know, like there is that element of bonding for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So that is a positive outcome of ultrasounds.
Yeah.
But, in terms of really medical, data, for the most part, they don't improve outcomes. So, but they are sometimes necessary, whether you've had, placenta previa in the past or, different conditions, to date when you were actually pregnant. Some women, their cycles are so wonky, they don't even know when the last time they had their period, things like that. Right. But for the most part, you don't need to be doing constant routine ultrasounds. And the same thing with the Doppler, that also has a lot of, radiation in terms of hearing the heartbeat and stuff like that. And again, there's just ways you can work with that. Cause I remember when I got my I did want my ultrasound in the middle of the pregnancy. It was helpful. Like, for example, a gal that was in my childbirth education course, when they did the pregnancy scan, they realized that the baby only had one kidney. Oh. And so it wasn't anything super serious, but it was just nice to know that for her as she walked into this, giving birth and stuff like that. And they gave him extra support around that and stuff like that. So I wanted to get that done, but I asked my midwife, I'm like, how can I make it as quick as possible and like let's just in and out, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, one thing you could do is request it to be done at 22 weeks because by then she's like, what I see sometimes is when moms to get it at 18 weeks or 20 weeks that sometimes they have to redo it because certain things aren't quite as developed as they need to be.
Right.
So you can do it at 22 weeks and then you're pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to have a retake. And then the other thing is like I told the sonographer, like don't go in there and take tons of pictures. Like I don't need, you know, like a lot of glam shots. I'm like, let's just get in, let's see what the anatomy we can see and let's get out. You know, stuff like that. You know, you can do that. But yeah, I have a whole chapter in the book about EMF, just simple things you can do like putting your phone on airplane mode when you're not using it, turning off your Wi-Fi router at night, using wired connections when you can. And the same thing with the baby monitor. I mean, we used a wired one, which was kind of obnoxious because the cord was going from the upstairs to the downstairs. But I was like, I don't know. I mean, when I measured some of those, I'm like, dang, these things are high. They emit a lot of, you know, EMF. So, another thing you could do is just use an audio one that does, emit some of those, but you could put it outside of the door. You know what I mean? Just don't put it right by the baby's head in the crib, or near the crib.
Okay.
So just little things. It doesn't have to be so radical. If you want to go radical, go for it. But, even if you just want to take a couple little steps you can do to make it, reduce some of that exposure, I think is a good thing to do. So
yeah, I really laughed at your video this morning, like all the crunchy mom things that we have.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
It was so funny. We were at that, we had our mid ultrasound last Tuesday and, it was so funny because we told her, we're like, yeah, I mean, we were a little early, but I was having some other issues. So they sent me in early and we're like, we don't want to really do this again. She's like, well, it's your call because what you just said, she's like, we might not be able to see everything. It might make you need to come back. And we're like, oh gosh, but we went ahead and did it. But at the end, it cracked us up because she was like trying to get one of their little faces to look at us. And she's like putting that little rod there, whatever that thing is, the wand, and just like rubbing it into my stomach, trying to get him to move. And we're like, no, like, don't do that.
Yeah, we both were like, no, it's okay.
We don't need to see his face.
It's okay. We're fine.
But it was that kind of thing, where I'm like, gosh, she thought we were crazy. She's like, I've been doing this 30 years and everybody turns out fine. And we're like, yeah, well, that's your opinion. But like, you don't need to go aggressive with our kid in there either. So we're like, no, you can stop, like, it's okay. Yes. It was a funny experience.
Babies generally don't like, at least in my experience, like with the Doppler, my kids would always hide from that thing.
Oh, isn't that funny?
And they would just like,
it's not
run away from it because it's hot, it's loud, it's, they just don't want to be messed with, basically.
Totally.
But, that's the other thing. Like, you can use the fetoscope. Once you're about 20, 22 weeks, if it is nice to hear the heartbeat, you know what I mean? Just to know everything's progressing, everything's great. So then you could request, could you please use a fetoscope? And some practices will literally have to buy one.
No way.
Because they will not have one. But that's okay. You can be the trailblazer. And that's another simple thing you can do that is going to reduce, any kind of exposure for your child. And it works. They can hear the heartbeat that way just by putting it on your belly. It's almost like what they use to hear your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, basically, a stethoscope.
Sure.
But they use it on the belly to hear the baby's heartbeat. So we have all sorts of tips and tricks in our book and our website and stuff like that you can do.
Sweet.
But Justin, I did want to get back to just a couple other things that moms can do because I always like practical tips.
Yes.
If they want to have a natural, unmedicated, I hate saying natural because every birth is natural, but an unmedicated birth, is that they can work with a midwife, and that can greatly reduce your risk of having a cesarean birth or a heavily managed birth, medically managed birth. Now, granted, that is not always an option for moms if they are high risk, if they have multiple, pregnancy like what you guys are in. So there are times where you just can't have a midwife. But if you can, a lot of women can have, a lot of women just have low risk, normal pregnancies. Get with a midwife because right there you're going to reduce your chances for a cesarean and for just lots of interventions significantly. Another thing you can do, so if you can't get with a midwife, you can find one, sometimes family doctors are going to be a little bit more, old school, so to speak. They're going to be not as intervention heavy. They have training with breech births and delivering those vaginally because breech birth is really just another variation variation of a normal presentation. So they have training in that, and they tend to have lower rates of cesareans. And we have whole checklists that you can ask hospitals and ask them their rates. What is your cesarean rate? And if they're not able to give you that information, then keep looking, and giving birth at a birth center is a great option if you don't feel comfortable with home birth, but you don't want that really medicalized experience. You also can get a doula. So even if you do need to give birth, you're a high-risk pregnancy, you're in the hospital, get a doula. Doulas, there are actual studies that show moms that give birth with doulas have lower complications. They have lower percentages of cesareans. They have better feelings about their birth, less issues with low self-esteem, things like that. They also have better success with initiating breastfeeding right away, things like that.
Yeah.
So doulas are worth their weight in gold. And yes, they are an investment. They can run anywhere from $400 to $1,200 or more, depending on where you live and, what her qualifications are. But they are so helpful.
Yeah.
Because this is a woman who has gone through sometimes hundreds and thousands of births before. She's probably seen it all. She is going to be your advocate. She's going to be your helper, your coach, she's just going to be such a help. Giving you different positions to try, being sure that you're drinking enough. That was one thing, like in my first birth, I literally had nothing to eat or drink for like 12 hours.
Oh, man.
And then finally my doula was like, here, have some apple juice. And I was like, what? Like I didn't really want it, but I took a sip and I was like, oh my gosh.
Whole new world.
Maybe I can push this baby out. Just simple things like that, like hydration. You're so in the zone.
Sure.
When you're giving birth, and a lot of hospitals, frankly, some even forbid eating and drinking during labor, which again, studies have shown has absolutely no merit. But you need to be sure, so this person is your support person. I know that your partner, your husband can be also wonderful supports, but to have someone that is outside of your inner circle is so powerful because they can just step in and give your partner a break. You know what I mean? They can even take pictures for you. They can they can give you a back rub while your husband is pushing on your back to help with counter pressure. There's so many ways they can be of help. Yeah. So that's something they can really do. And then just from one thing I've really noticed, and again, this has been shown in some studies, the women in my birth course that tend to have short births, short, uncomplicated, just awesome births, are really dedicated to the red raspberry leaf tea and the dates. Okay, so these are two little hacks you can do.
I like it.
What's that?
I keep telling Justin about the date thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
So at first there was just one study and it was like out of Jerusalem. And so you're a little bit like, is this like from like the date industry? I don't know. You got a little bit suspicious. Like, totally. Is this like really valid science? And it was a very small study. But now there's been a couple more that have come out that link date consumption with less complications, with a shorter first stage of labor. And that it tends to be what goes on forever for first time moms.
Yeah.
So they found 6 dates, and I think it's like 80 grams of fruit. So you can kind of, weigh it if you wanted to. Cause that's the thing. Dates, some of the dates are huge and other ones are really small. So what really looks like 6 dates,
Right.
But anyway, so 6 days a day starting like at the last, I think it's 36 weeks of pregnancy. So that last month can really help your birth. And I just find moms that really were dedicated to getting those dates in. It's that 1-2 combination with the red raspberry leaf tea, just have better births. And I remember with my first pregnancy, my midwife was a huge believer in red raspberry leaf tea. She had 3 children. She's like, I took it with all of them and I had amazing births. So she told me that. I was like, okay, that's cool. And I think that was like my first appointment. So I was like 10 weeks pregnant. So I remember I bought some and I started drinking it maybe at 11 weeks. And I started to feel a little uterine cramping. And it freaked me out. And so I was like, okay, that might have worked for her, but I'm not going to touch it. Because of course that just scared me that I was going to go into like premature labor.
Yeah.
But so what I think the general consensus is really to start it in your second trimester. So, so my first pregnancy or birth was super hard, and really my uterus, it just was not efficient with the contractions, if that makes sense. It's like our uterus is a muscle. And it just wasn't firing that well. Really the whole labor. Even the very beginning, it was like I was having a contraction every like a minute and a half. It was almost like a hyper uterus. You know what I mean? But they weren't effective, if that makes sense. So anyways, the second time around, I was like, I'm getting on that red raspberry leaf tea because I had such a hard birth. I'm like, I'll do anything to make it better. So I started my second trimester. I drank it every single day. I would have 2 cups a day. And then my last week of pregnancy, I did like the double brew, and I have it on my website. It's like the Labor Day tea. So I like really did a strong concoction of it. And I'm telling you, I literally, when I got to the hospital, when I got to the midwife or the birth center that was in a hospital, my midwife checked me. I was fully dilated +2.
Dang.
I mean, I barely got off the gurney to get onto the bed to birth this baby. And it's like 2 pushes, she was out. I mean, it was insane. And what I'm trying to say is though, my uterus was like a machine. I'm telling you, that thing was like, I mean, the contractions were just so efficient. They were so effective. Like every contraction, I could just literally feel my baby moving down. And I really think because red raspberry leaf tea is a uterine tonic. So, and that's why some women will feel a tightening or a little, that's what I was feeling when I drank it in the first trimester. It was a little bit of that cramping because it's stimulating the uterus, you know? So it is very gentle. It hasn't been tied with like premature labor or anything like that, but it is best to start in your second trimester with the permission of your doctor or your midwife. Always get cleared. And for some reason, some women just have a very sensitive uterus that they can't even handle it in the second trimester. So they might not have it until, you know, later into their third trimester. And that's fine too. But I find those 2 combinations, the red raspberry leaf tea, the 6 dates a day, really seems to create these shorter, faster, easier births.
That's interesting. So you're doing 2 cups a day of the red raspberry leaf, pretty much your whole duration.
And then in the end, she's putting it in an IV right in her arm.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. Yeah, no, so I started I think around 14 weeks, and I would just get, I bought the traditional medicinals tea. I would get 2 tea bags. Yeah. I had this really big, you know, cup that I would put, or mug, and I would just put like 16 ounces of hot water with those 2 bags, let it sit for a couple minutes, and that was my kind of afternoon ritual.
Nice.
And then, like I said, right before birth, I like went crazy with it. But
wow.
Yeah.
Hey,
anyways, like if it helps, I mean, anything you can do to take an edge off that's safe, you know. And that's the thing with dates. It's like, what's in dates that are creating, you know, this, or they're helping birth so much. And I guess there's some like different fatty acids in dates, and I think there's like prostaglandins that are, you know, help to stimulate, you know, birth, and I don't know, there's something special in dates too. So
wow, is it any kind of date?
Yeah, I think in the study, I want to say it was I can't remember the name of them, but they're the ones that kind of look like roaches.
Yeah, the medjool.
They're kind of the uglier ones. They're smaller. I think that
it's not the medjool. Maybe it's I know there's so many kinds. It's funny.
It's not the medjool. It's the like, but I don't think it matters because I've had moms just do Lara bars.
Oh, interesting.
I've had moms do the medjool. I've had moms do the smaller ones. So they've done all different types of dates. It doesn't really matter. I think it's just the date fruit.
Yeah.
And, and you know, it can be hard, like for moms with like, you know, GBS positive or who are gestational, have gestational diabetes, you know, it might be more challenging to get those dates in. I think some tips could be just to always eat them after a meal with protein and fat. And then just break them apart. So instead of just like dive bombing with 6 at one serving, you know what I mean? Just have a little after each meal.
Yeah.
To keep the blood sugar balanced and, kind of buffer it a little bit.
Yeah, good call. We had one question we had a few, but we'll just delve into one. What do you think of folic acid and its importance in pregnancy?
Well, I mean, the studies show that it is very important. I think, you know, just making sure that you're taking the right form of it. And, you know, that's important. Dependent on if you have the MTHFR mutation. And it's almost like even if you just assume that you do have it, I think that even people that don't have it sometimes aren't as great of methylators as other people and stuff like that. So you might just be better off just taking with like your prenatal a methylated form, you know, or a food-based form. So yeah, I think it's important. Yeah. There's one by a company called Des Bio. It's DESBIO.
Okay.
And it's a liquid form of it, and they mix it up into a fat, so it's like liposomal or so. I can't pronounce that right, but it really, I feel like it absorbs really well. Okay. And it's a combination of like folate and B12 and choline and some other Bs. But it's all broken down for people that do have MTHFR. So, I've been taking it just kind of more for energy, and I feel so good on it. I'm like, gosh, this would be great if you were pregnant to take this, because it's just, I can just tell my body's actually using it, because I actually don't have MTHFR, like those two really popular mutations, but I do notice, like with B vitamins, even if they're like food-based B vitamins, I find that I do fine on them for a while, and then I start to get kind of wound up or like too energized. With this liquid form, I feel great, and it doesn't wind me up. It's just a very balanced kind of energy. But anyway, most prenatals have folate. I would just be sure that you have the methylated folate so that you are not causing harm. You know what I mean? If you do have the MTHFR.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see on your site. I ordered the Thorne prenatals.
Yes, that's an excellent one.
Yeah, when you said that, I know there's a couple that you recommended for the MTHFR stuff, but I struggle with those kind of symptoms, even though I haven't technically been, I don't really know if I have it or not. But yeah, ever since I've been on those, I just feel a bit better. I don't know. They're great. Yeah. They're great. But I'm with you. Anything liquid just seems to be so much better assimilated into your body.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, thanks for answering that. That was sweet.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too about, on your site, you talked about the epidural side effects and the incidence of breastfeeding in correlation with, having an epidural. What are your thoughts on the epidural? And you said you yourself had Pitocin, and, obviously it wasn't something that you wanted, but what are some thoughts about that and what you did? Because, part of this whole thing that you wrote, before we talked was, for women to forgive themselves as well for not having everything go correct. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on the epidural, in relation to breastfeeding and, forgiving yourself and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. I want to just cover two more things before we close this up, because I know we're running out of time. I have to be sure I share these two.
Please.
Okay. So epidurals, for some moms, epidurals are exactly what they need to prevent them from having a cesarean. Okay. For some moms, they are so stressed out. They're in so much pain. Their body is in fight and flight, and there's so much adrenaline being released that their body can literally not relax to birth the baby. I had one friend, she literally like almost was having an anxiety attack around, because it was so intense for her during transition or right before transition. She got the epidural. She was able to relax. She was able to calm down. That whole pelvic floor area was able to kind of release, and she had a great birth after that. It was wonderful. I've had other moms who have been in birth, for 48 hours, 36 hours, and they're absolutely exhausted. And so an epidural allowed them to actually sleep and relax and to dilate and to, again, give birth. But I find that those are probably a little bit more of the exceptions. There's epidurals also can slow down labor, and it is associated with higher rates of cesarean and with tears and different things that most moms don't want to go for, when they're going to give birth. So just be really judicious about it and really look at, you run everything through the brain, which is what are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the advantages? What does your intuition say? And could you say no right now and wait? You know what I mean? So I asked for an epidural when I was in transition. I was like losing my mind, you know what I mean? And my midwife's like, it's so late in the game now, Genevieve. Like, I don't think it's going to really help you at this point, So I was like, okay. So we all go through that moment of weakness where, not all, but a lot of us can, where we just will do anything to get the baby out. But I've had friends, like I had one gal, she's actually a dear friend of mine. She had 3 children, and she had 2 natural unmedicated births. And then her third, she was just so surprised by the pregnancy. She was so over it. And she's like, just give me an epidural. And she's like, it actually was worse. Like, it didn't really work well. And then when it did finally, kind of kick in, I could not feel her descending. And so it was very difficult to push because it was so numb. And then she had to get a catheter, and she couldn't leave the bed. And it's like, I think sometimes we have this idealized version that's like, it's just going to make all the pain go away. And that's not necessarily the case.
Right. It can limit you.
So anyway, and it can, interfere with that first, the baby can be a little bit more lethargic, and it can interfere with that first, latch and the breastfeeding initiation, which can affect, long-term breastfeeding success and things like that. So if you're able to, use breathing and visualization and water. Water is one of the most effective pain mediators out there. If you can use those other tools, that would be great, you know, and that would be preferred because it does have consequences, basically.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the water too. Like, you know, so many times we see women, and especially in TV and movies and things, like just on their back when stirrups, and you know what I mean, and like. Yeah. You know, the way we give birth in the position is so bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like that completely compresses the pelvis. It's like the worst position. I mean, some women actually do give birth in that position because they just are intuitively called to do that, and it must be the way the baby's positioned or something like that. But for most women, that's probably one of the worst positions you can be in.
I can only imagine.
So squatting, you know, being on all fours. There's so many other positions that keep that pelvis open, that just lets that whole area have, you know, your baby just to come down the birth canal so much better. So, and I just want to say too, like the idea of giving birth vaginally and going unmedicated and blah, blah, blah. This isn't about being like the hero and like a sucker for pain or something like that. There have been a lot of studies that have been coming out around the benefits of, you know, vaginal birth for the baby. You know, they have, you know, C-section babies have a less diversified gut flora. Yeah. Okay. They're more likely to develop things like staph and strep. Okay. And that could be just because they're picking it up literally from the hospital and from the room, you know what I mean? Where they're being birthed. If you think about it, when a baby comes through the birth canal, they are literally swallowing fluid and bacteria, basically, that's inoculating their microbiome.
Right.
So it's a huge colonizer for the baby. Okay. And when they're coming down too, it's when they're getting squished through the pelvis, squished through that whole area, the fluids from the baby's lungs are being released and being, you know, excreted. So they have less respiratory distress. But there's other things, like, I mean, they're showing like C-section babies have greater likelihood for obesity and asthma and type 1 diabetes when they get older. So somehow it's connecting, or, you know, giving birth and being exposed to all that bacteria is informing the baby's immune system. Right. You know, they're also less likely to be hospitalized for asthma, for juvenile arthritis, for bowel disease, leukemia, things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
They have a 20% higher risk of developing asthma. They've got a 40% greater risk of developing immune defects. Okay. So this is why it's like, I think a lot of times, and at least with my high school friends, I remember I went out to lunch with them. 4 out of 5 of them had cesareans. And I doubt that many of them had conversations with their doctors that said, here are some of the risks associated with it. You know what I mean? Here are some of the consequences. Here are some of the things that, you know, the drawbacks. And sometimes you need C-sections. I mean, if you don't have C-sections, moms and babies will die. Okay. So this isn't about, again, shaming, blaming, you know, or saying, oh, I failed because I had my baby via C-section. You know, I'm a C-section baby myself. So I probably would not be here today if it wasn't for that. It's a life-saving surgery. Yeah. But it's being way overused in the United States and really across the globe. So I think our rate right now is like 33%, and it really should be more like 10-15% according to the World Health Organization. Most midwife practices, you're looking at 3 to 5% rates. So that's, you know, again, it's about empowering moms. It's about giving this information so that they know, okay, you know, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to do this footwork. I'm going to do my pelvic exercises. I'm going to eat my dates. I'm going to try as best as I can. Yeah. And then who knows how, again, it's going to unfold. But to give it a try, you know, and to give it your best shot.
Yeah. I find it interesting. Have you heard, I'm sure you've heard everything, but my naturopath, he's cool. He said, you know, right when we found out in October or whatever, and we said we were pregnant, I was in there for an appointment, and he said, you know, God forbid something, you know, you have this birth you don't really want and desire, and you have a C-section. He goes, there's ways to still slather some of that stuff on the baby. Yep. And I go, yeah, I mean, it sounds funny when you're in a hospital setting and you're like, hey, hold on a minute, let me slather my baby in some fluid. But I mean, there are ways to still get them, you know, covered in some of this stuff, which I don't think is probably very popular, but when you're aware of it, there's ways to get around stuff too that I still think that made me really happy. Even at the beginning, I thought, okay, you know, we don't know how things are going to go. You don't know at this point, we didn't know anything, but I thought there's still ways to make this a better situation for everyone, you know?
Absolutely.
So I like that
and
encouragement.
That's the thing. And it's like, and I actually have a whole chapter about that in our book about the gentle cesarean. And this is ways that you can re-inoculate your baby's microbiome. You can take a vaginal swab. You can put it on your breast when the baby's breastfeeding.
Yep.
You can give your baby infant, probiotics that are designed, for their bacteria. Breastfeeding is a huge way that babies get so many wonderful benefits. So yeah, it's never, all or nothing. You're never doomed if you have a cesarean. I mean, just practicing skin to skin right after birth is a phenomenal way that baby is picking up all the bacteria on her skin.
Yep.
Not, bathing your babies that much, especially in the beginning, letting them, because they have the vernix, they have this like layer, a protective layer on them. And a lot of times the doctors in the hospital, they want to bathe the baby. They want to scrub it off. They want to, it's like, this is nature's design. It helps to regulate their temperature. It's got good bacteria. It's got protective antibodies. It helps to moisturize the skin. So yes. And you can even when they make the incision, baby can come out and they can kind of work their way out in a sense. So they now will let babies kind of linger inside of the uterus, and this kind of helps to compress the baby's torso. It helps to kind of drain some of that fluid from the lungs. So it can kind of recreate some of that squeeze that they would get through the vaginal canal. So again, gentle cesarean, great practice, very much like evidence-based, and it's like being practiced in like less than 1% of U.S. hospitals.
Wow.
So this is again where you can educate your doctors, your, people that you come in contact with, because a lot of it, there should be no objections, because it's not breaking any hospital protocol per se. It's not risky or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
good to hear. I think that's really important for people, for sure.
So tell people about, because we just purchased your baby course, and so tell people a little bit about what's in there and what they can expect to find at your website.
Sure. So it is it's all video based. So it's on demand. You can do it when you want to. It's all online, which was important for us because, when we were actually pregnant and we were going to the childbirth education course, it was kind of far from our house, and it was like a 3-hour session each week.
Oh, wow.
And it got really tiring towards the end. I was like, oh my gosh, it was 12 weeks. We felt like it was too long. Anyway, so this is only 8 weeks. It's, very, to the point. We've got the actual lessons for each week. I teach it with a doula who actually now is a midwife. So she's very knowledgeable. And then we also have some practice sessions that go along with it that just give moms some breathing techniques, some position techniques and things like that they can use in birth. So it's just a fun interactive class. There's a section for dads, for each week, just so that they're kind of included, or the partner, because that can be kind of a different experience for them. And then probably one of the greatest values of it is a private Facebook group that me and a doula monitor. And that's where they're like a lot of the conversations, the questions, the fears, the birth stories, all that comes out in that Facebook group where we just really support each other. We, give suggestions for postpartum healing and babies that are colic and this and that, all those different types of things come up, and, it's really been awesome. So we've had a lot of positive feedback, and hundreds of moms have gone through it. And, so.
Oh, you.
That's so cool.
Yay.
Now, what's in store for you, for your work, your website, the stuff you're producing? What are you going to be doing?
Maybe baby's first year is coming.
Yeah.
Yes, the baby's first year. That's what we're working on. We actually partnered with a childhood development gal, and so she has her master's degree in childhood development. So we're partnering with her because I want to give really tactical tips for moms of how they can help support their baby's particular development. You know what I mean? So when their eyesight is really working on focusing and color, there's things you can do that can help support that, and just things like that. So it's going to be a fun curriculum, and I also want to really give mom attention, because I remember I signed up for, baby's first year stuff online, and it was all about baby, but, mom is going through a radical adjustment. The whole family is. So tips for mom about healing and recovery and nutrition, mood support, things like that come up. That's really what I've seen. That was probably the thing I learned the most just by being a participant, because I feel like I'm a participant in this birth group because I'm in this Facebook group, and they're it's such an active community, and really seeing postpartum. I was lucky. My postpartum was very easy. I was able to bounce back really quickly. And I also had a ton of support. A lot of these moms don't, and a lot of the moms have had a hard time recovering. And so really giving a lot of tools and strategies and just suggestions for these moms to recover better and faster, and just to be sure they're set up for success after giving birth, because there's so much lead up to the big day, and then you give birth, you're like, now what?
Yeah,
what the heck?
What am I doing? So that is critical, and that's what this Baby's First Year's curriculum is going to be focused on.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
How fun.
Do you know when that will be available, or not yet?
We are working on it right now, so I'm hoping by, let's see, what is it now? I would say by like late spring. I mean, our goal is to be getting it launched by April.
Oh, sweet.
Hopefully.
So if people are listening in the future, that is April of 2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. We'll be tracking you.
So when is your due date?
I was going to say, we are June 27th, but who knows,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Sure, might be early.
Twins, it could be months earlier even.
Right. So we'll be tracking you with
twins develop faster, though. You know, so I'm sure they caught everything they needed to catch on that earlier scan, because I've heard twins they kind of know that their time is limited, and they just hurry up and get it done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They found everything they needed to find. It was perfect. It went well.
That was cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're glad to know what's going on in there. Explains why I've been extra pudgy.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good. I'm so excited for you guys.
Oh, Genevieve,
thanks, Genevieve.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for your work. Thanks for your course, your books. So much great stuff. Thanks for doing everything that you do.
Amen.
It's amazing.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for all that you do. Spread the natural gospel out there, right?
There you
Amen,
go.
girl.
There you go. Well, hang on the line there really quick, because I'm just going to close out the show. Thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. What a fun show. Go over to Mama Natural, and we'll put the links. Mama Natural. I keep saying that. Mama Natural. Go over to mamanatural.com.
I love you. You make everything so fancy.
Mama
That's why
Natural.
you buy the fancy Majewel dates.
That's right. Yeah, go over, check out her website, and check out, there's really some great articles and some, her course is there, and we're actually affiliates for the course, so if you want to support our work, you can click on the link that we'll put for this particular show page. At no extra cost to you. You just click on over and go check out our course. So, if you guys know anybody also that is interested in this subject matter, please tell them to, or pass the show on to them and share it with them. That way other people can learn and be exposed to all of this cool information.
There's a lot of mamas. People are always giving birth. When you're pregnant, I notice everybody's pregnant,
Yeah.
You look around you and like, wow, I never realized so many people were pregnant at one time.
And this is such critical information because, to bring a new generation of children who are going to be conscious, who are going to be aware, connected to God, connected to themselves. It's so important, this work. And not just because we're going through it. I mean, this is something that I've felt for my whole life. So
this is a generation rising up for greatness, I think.
To create a new humanity is really, really important. So check her out, mamanatural.com. I said it correct. All right, everyone. Thank you. We love you. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. I have been a huge fan of rebounding for many, many years. And if you want to get in great cardiovascular shape, tone your legs, back, and butt, and stomach, as well as cleanse your lymphatic system from toxins and chemicals, you just have to start rebounding. It's imperative. And not only will it create endorphins that quickly become addictive to you, but it's very low impact as well. It helps to prevent sicknesses and diseases, as well as increase bone density, and it flushes toxins from your lymphatic system. It's amazing. And not only that, but it's a ton of fun also. I do it every single day for about 15 minutes. And we found the best rebounder on the market today in the world, bar none. It's called the Bellicon Rebounder. It's the Rolls-Royce of rebounders, in my opinion. And let's listen to some of what our guests have had to say about rebounding. Robert von Sarbacher is a health researcher and creator of the Mini Beat Protocol. And Robert, what's your favorite exercise?
In general, probably one of the number one anti-aging exercises on the planet is rebounding. So 15 minutes a day is good for that. You can find people who have had thermography scans on cancers, giant tumors, and when they're doing a rebounder, it would start spewing out and shrinking right in front of your eyes, the tumor would, as they're on the rebounder. So it's really good for that sort of thing. It's also very good for exercising internal organs. It's the only internal organ exerciser that I know of known to man.
Dr. Lindsay Duncan is the CEO and founder of Genesis Today. And what's the best way that you think of to stimulate the lymphatic system of the body?
Rebounding is incredible because it's good for the lymphatic system, and there's more lymph fluid in the body than there is blood. And the quickest way and the most effective way to get the lymphatic system flowing is through rebounding itself.
Yeah, because the lymphatic system can't really detox itself, can it? I think you
No, the heart, we have the heart, thank you, for pumping blood. And we don't have a heart to pump lymphatic fluid. The only thing that really can pump lymphatic fluid is cardiovascular exercise utilizing the thighs, the thigh muscles. And that's why rebounding and getting a burn in that thigh muscle is so important for the flow and the stimulation of the lymphatic fluid.
Wow, and they even put cancer patients on rebounding, don't they?
Nutritionists do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but not a conventional doctor. But yeah, I've been learning about rebounding lately. It's quite an amazing thing.
Yeah, rebounding's amazing.
Health researcher and author of Cancer Step Outside the Box, Ty Bollinger. What do you do in your life to prevent cancer?
What do you do to treat cancer? What do you do to prevent it? Rebounding is something that I try to do on a daily basis. A little mini trampoline for those people that aren't familiar with the term rebounding, but it's basically just jumping up and down on a little mini tramp. What that does is it stimulates the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is one of our primary detoxification systems in our body, and most folks don't stimulate their lymph flow, and so the toxicity in their body builds up because their lymph is not stimulated, and the up-down motion on a rebounder stimulates the lymph flow better than just about any other exercise. So I do that almost on a daily, probably 5 days a week, I would say I average doing that.
And finally, author and speaker and creator of the Longevity Now program, David Wolf. Do you think the Bellicon is the best rebounder on the market today?
Absolutely. I was just with the crew in Europe that does the Bellicon rebounder, which is an incredible rebounder. My God, what a machine. And it doesn't use metal springs. It uses like flexi ropes. So it's very soft and fun, and it's just great to play with.
Well, there you have it. The up and down G-force actually stimulates every single cell in your body. It's incredible. And as someone who works out in the gym a lot and does Qigong, I think that the best physical aerobic exercise, in my opinion, is rebounding. It's just absolutely incredible for the human body. And the Bellicon is silent, and it comes with a warranty, and you can get them in several different sizes and colors, and some of them have bars that you can hold on to in case you're worried about balance. It's a well worth it investment in your health and in your future. So check them out in our store if you'd like, or you can check out the videos on extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. Again, that's extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. That's B as in boy, ELLICON. All right, Genevieve Howland from Mama Natural.
Oh, look at
that.
you. I was getting ready to correct
Mama
you.
Natural.
I like the flair. Mama Natural.
She's cool, isn't she? We just got off the phone with her, just doing a little post-show wrap-up, and she's just such a really cool person.
She's just down to earth. I really like her. Her and Rob Paley and Melissa, man, they're just like two in a row. I find it so funny. We've had like 5 years of shows, and all the pregnant ones are coming around now. I know, and it's not even by design. It just so happens that way. But yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I really like her. I think she's super brilliant. I think she's really loving. I think she really is into her work and cares, a lot, very deeply about the world. And
well, it's super important. I mean, it's super important to because there has to be people out there that do this kind of stuff. There has to be, because otherwise, if we continue giving birth in such a medicalized way, in such an unconscious way and disconnected way, and people not even like preparing. I mean, we weren't trying for a kid, but we were preparing for 2 years. That's a great way to say
it, right? Sure.
So it wasn't. But people are just getting pregnant, not even knowing it, and just boozing and
getting pregnant the night they come home from the club.
Yeah, we're never going to make a better society. We're never going to make a better world and improve the state of living on this planet if we're acting in ways that propagate this kind of lifestyle where people are completely unconscious, giving birth to kids in an unconscious way and not being awake,
entering into it in a sacred or spiritual way at all. And
if we want to elevate humanity, we have to do these things.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I'm not just saying that. I really feel like this next generation is called to something big, in many arenas, it's not just like one area, but I feel like this is going to be a generation who changes things. So it starts with us, we pass the torch, and the genetics and the health. the wellness and stuff. So no, I'm thrilled. I'm really encouraged by, I mean, she's so nice. She sent me a copy of the book, you know? And it's on something I told her on an email when we were going back and forth. It's something I've had on my list for like, since we found out we were pregnant. And it's just ordering. I don't know what's wrong with us. It's just making that order sometimes is just so, we're buying all these other things and you're kind of like, oh, I'll get it the next order.
Yeah,
you know,
you just forget or something.
It's so great. I'm going to be able to have that in my hands, but just to feel empowered about the things that you can do if you know, because unfortunately now my birth center, they don't deal with the multiples.
Do most birth centers not?
I don't think they do. I've looked around online.
Are they all that way? Why don't they deal with twins?
Because it's considered high risk, and
is that the only reason?
Yeah, they want you to be able to. There's a lot of things that could change rapidly or go differently, and they don't feel prepared enough, even with their emergency equipment and things, to be able to intervene quickly. Because if they have to transfer you,
I guess you could figure that out. Because if you're thinking from purely a business perspective, you're thinking, okay, if you have 100 women giving birth here a month, and then you start allowing twins, and let's say like 5 or 10 of them are twins, and then 2 or 3 of those 10 that are twins have problems, and those people post on Yelp, or those people, I'm sure they have to document, the satisfaction levels and, potential risks and all these things. So it increases the amount of bad things that could happen.
Right.
So I get that.
I get it too. I mean, and people, it's rare, but people do lose babies or, they lose moms. So it's like, I could see why, you have, thank God for technology in a hospital. There are better ways of, dealing with it and saving people. And, but there's, a friend of mine I worked with at a salon. She unfortunately died. She had a amniotic embolism. There's nothing they could do. And she was in a hospital,
Yeah.
So they C-sectioned her baby out and the baby made it. But unfortunately it was super tragic. She did not, but it's like, you don't hear about it much. That happened all the time.
No, but the minute a natural birth, something like that happens, then it's like, it's front page news.
If that was in a birthing center.
It's on Yahoo. It's all over the place. People are talking, and
it's too bad it's like that, but
it's like the people that, there's famous people that have had cancer, and, they go through it. It wasn't Patrick Swayze, but it would, people go through, I forget, there's one really famous one where, it was a famous actor, I think, and he went to some natural doctor, a little bit before. I think this might have been in the 80s or something.
Okay.
And then, so he goes to the natural doctor, he had done chemotherapy, radiation, all this stuff, and nothing was working. And then he went to a natural doctor, ended up dying, and then it's the natural doctor that gets the blame because such and such person. So it's like, it's just the way our culture, it's just bizarre how people do that,
They're so fast to make quacks of people and to blame and point fingers. And
it's like, in actuality, we don't know, because he would have had to clone that guy. If he had never had chemotherapy and radiation and gone to the natural person first, the natural solutions could have worked for him. But, no one's going to say, not only did the natural solutions not kill him, but no one's going to go back and say, well, all the chemotherapy and radiation is what actually killed him.
Right.
No one's going to say that. No. But it's the same thing with natural birth. It's like, I get the fact that they can't allow or don't have twins involved.
But I have to say, I'm encouraged that the doctor that they have recommended me to is highly known in that community for being more of a natural guy. He tries to, he's very low intervention when he can. He's equipped to do surgery and things like that, of course. But he's delivered a lot of natural twins. And
can you have it in a room, like in a nice room that's like that?
Well, and apparently in our area, I've just heard that he works heavily with the midwives. That's what's so cool, is he's their go-to guy when they need to consult a doctor.
Did you say that you want to get a doula?
Oh yeah,
as well.
Doula. Yeah, for sure.
As well as a midwife.
Oh yeah, no, okay. Probably a doula and a doctor in our case.
Right, okay.
But he works with a doula or a midwife at his office, and they have rallied to get in these really nice hospital suites, laboring tubs. So they have the water option in the hospital, which is just.
I think that's the most natural.
It's so integrative. This is what should be happening throughout time. And then if things go a certain way and you need the epidural or you need to have an intervention, you at least have a chance at giving it your all and going the route you wanted,
Right.
So I'm encouraged. I mean, there are options, and this isn't the way we saw this going either. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, oh, we have this nice, really beautiful birthing center with candles, and you can have your playlist. And it's just, it is different, and it's a readjustment, but, there is a reason why, and we get our double blessing whether or not we have a birthing center or a hospital birth. So,
yeah.
And we're going to do it as natural as we possibly can. So
yeah, totally.
It's good. It's all good. No judgment, no guilt.
Yeah, that's really what we're trying to get rid of.
I think that's worse than anything you could put on, if you have an epidural, I think the guilt about that is worse than,
right, right.
Like she was saying, oh, look, and Mama Natural started following us on Instagram.
That's great.
I love her. She's great.
Yeah, she's great.
Thanks, Genevieve, if you're ever listening to this in the future. We appreciate you.
She's great. Yeah, so if you guys want to support our work, and if you guys are interested, if you're listening,
and
our twins, that's right, because we'll use, whatever commission we make, we'll be buying probably food for the kids.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, if you guys want to support our work, and Jen as well, at no extra cost to you, if you guys want to support that and purchase the baby course, we purchased it ourselves and are so just excited about it.
There's a lot of material in there to go through.
Yeah, just about everything in our store are things that we have experience with and use and have. And so this is the same case with this particular product by Genevieve. So we love this product, and I think it will really benefit you. You should look more into it. And also what I'll do is I'll put a link on this show page too for that baby week sort of the week by week update,
pregnancy update.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that as well, because sometimes it's hard to find on people's websites, and so that way you can go right to that and get that.
She is very thorough. I have to say, some of the sites are like, your baby's the size of a lemon. She'll say, yeah, your baby's roughly the size of a lemon, but here's what's happening with all the development. And you get a little of that other places, but she is so thorough.
So how come she said at the beginning that like no other site was doing something like the week by week stuff? That seems so crazy.
They do week by week stuff. It is out there, but it's not as like her seems like she really delved in and like researched, like when are fingerprints, like forming, when are like gums. I mean, it's just crazy. You have to search that stuff out. They usually give you a very generic, your baby's the size of a lemon, its heart's beating. And you're like, okay. She's more like, wow, this is breaking off into this, and this is, spreading out into that, and these little buds are forming off this. And it's just it's much more, it's what's really going on. And if you could wrap your mind somewhat around that, it's just it's such an amazing process.
Are we at week 19 now?
We are at week 19.
Week 19. That's crazy.
I know.
So, I like that what she said too. It was interesting. Did she say that this is something that she's working on in a future project, or it's part of what you're receiving in her emails, where she said like, basically week whatever is when the nervous system sort of turns on, and then here are some recipes for the nervous system. Is that already part of it?
It's
or is that in something that she's gonna put?
I think she's going to be. I know that she does. Well, she offers some. It's funny because on the weekly updates I get, there's sometimes videos, which I love. Articles to read with links to the products and things like that's how I found the Thorin prenatal vitamins and stuff.
Oh, right.
And then occasionally, yes, there'll be a link to a recipe. This is what's good for this, or
okay.
But I think she's probably talking about stepping that up too with her next stuff. So.
Okay.
But what I've seen with her recipes and stuff she has put out, she's a very good food preparer, very healthy meal planner, and she's really good at cooking and making things and everything from throwing things into a smoothie to making a tea.
We're going to get you some of that red raspberry leaf tea. We should, huh?
Heck yeah. I've read that from the beginning of hers, and I've added in the dates already, but I only do 1 or 2 a day.
How many? 6?
6 near the end. Woohoo!
Dang. But can you start doing those now?
Oh yeah, and that's what she says in her thing. She goes, it's never, unless you have major blood sugar, diabetic, gestational thing going on.
Right.
Talk to your doctor about it. As always, like we're not telling people to just go out and do it. But she says just be more careful because they are sugary. But ma'am, she goes, yeah, if you already love dates, you want to eat dates, eat them all the way. It's not going to hurt anything.
You could just kind of eat.
Graze on them.
Yeah, graze on them.
Mix them up, like she said.
And I also want to let people know too that you should check out this product called the Belly Armor.
Oh, heck yeah.
Which is something that you can put over your kids, or your belly, but both your kids.
Well, that too, right.
And it protects from EMF.
It's basically the belly band, but glorified, because most people know what a belly band is.
Right.
My sister had given me 2 regular belly bands, and it actually, is something that sits low over your belly, and it can act as like you can wear your pre-pregnancy pants,
right?
Unbutton them, unzip them, and just have this thing looking like a low tank top. And that supports. It kind of hugs everything in, but this stuff protects it. It's made with this special. I forget the name of the fabric.
Like microfiber, silver mesh stuff, but they're really fashionable too.
They're cool, and they defend against...
they block the radiation from cell phones and wireless technology and stuff. Yeah.
So whether you're in your car, we drive a Prius and it's electric, part electric.
But all cars are really, really,
really
bad
high, you're right, no matter
EMF,
what.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting in front of a computer, even though I have my Defender Shield pad under it, which I feel good about. Coming forward, it's going to be good to, just be using that more throughout this pregnancy. And I ordered a camisole the other day too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
They have really stylish, cool camisoles with that technology built in to shield everything. So I think that's a really important part. So yeah, you can go to, it's in our store, right?
Yeah, it's in our store. And also want to let people know too about DHA from MitoLife. If you guys want one of the most powerful substances you can ever consume, DHA helps build the nervous system, helps hold more light in the body, helps transfer energy to the mitochondria so that your mitochondria can create ATP. It's some people say all you need is DHA. And so DHA helps with nervous system development, brain health. It's like the list helps to mitigate the damaging effects of blue light, of EMF radiation. I mean, it's one of the most important supplements you could ever take. So, we like the stuff from MitoLife. That's the stuff that we're on, and that's, you're taking that for pregnancy.
And I did joke really about it on Instagram, but I'm serious. I wrote to Matt, who was on our show from MitoLife, and I said, this baby is sponsored by...
Baby sponsored by MitoLife.
This baby is brought to you by MitoLife DHA. But I can't get enough of it. And I have to say it has a yummy organic lemon flavor that makes it much more palatable. Yeah, I love it. I share with everybody who's writing and asking me about what supplements you're taking and stuff. And even though we're going to do an up-and-coming podcast here soon on
we need to do
our whole pregnancy, the DHA has been huge. So
Yeah.
I like it.
All right, guys. Well, go check out her course, and I'll put links to the MitoLife, the Defender Shield that Kate just talked about, and the belly armor, and anything else?
A date farm.
The date farm. There you go.
Totally kidding.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. And if you guys know anyone who would benefit from this particular show or Genevieve's work over at Mama Natural, make sure to send them this particular show, and help introduce that person to this show, and make sure to share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We would appreciate that as well. So help get the word out. And also want to let you guys know too. First of all, I want to thank you for your support for purchasing any products through our Amazon link. That helps to support the show a lot. We really appreciate that. And also, we are currently right now, the doors are finally open to our Extreme Health Academy.
Yeah, no more talking about it.
I know.
It's here. It's a weekend.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's so fun.
We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people sign up, and it's just such an awesome experience. And we've both been spending time in the forums, helping people and connecting with them, and it's been really fun.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
People are loving it. People are so excited to be in there. Don't you just love reading these people's stories, and they're pumped up going, I feel like I'm not alone anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not crazy. My family thinks I'm nuts, and there's this place where no one thinks I'm crazy. And this is what it's all about. Like,
I know.
Not only learning, but the community part is, I'm so glad that you did the forum.
I know. We almost didn't do the forum, and I'm so glad we did.
Oh, amen.
Because it's got so many amazing, nice people in there, and I'm just reading everyone's story and thinking, wow, man, these people are on some serious health journeys, and they're serious about their health and turning things around. And so basically the Academy, we're partnered with Dr. John Bergman, and I'm going to be producing content. Dr. Bergman is going to be producing content. He already is. So he's working on the next course, which is going to be released in, I think, March of 2018, called The 3 Stressors, the physical, chemical, and emotional stress, as the root of all disease, and the things that you can do, practical tips to mitigate what is really breaking us down at the cellular level with these 3 stressors. So we're going to be doing monthly mastermind calls, Q&A calls with him, workshops with other practitioners. There's going to be quick tips that I'm going to be producing. All of the audio is searchable. It's going to be it is just an amazing place. There's a place in there for you to track your health. So if you want to put all of your vital signs, your stats, all this stuff into a database and track it by a graph over time.
Well, and videos to show you how to do it. I mean, it's pretty thorough, and we just opened. So
and the videos showing what the numbers mean and how to test and how often to test and what products to use to test. And it's going to grow exponentially. And I'm just really excited about it. So if you guys are someone, if you currently have any kind of health conditions, you want to get on top of these things, or if you are someone who, like us, have a goal of living to 150 or beyond, this is the place for you.
Yeah.
So join all the other crazy people inside the Extreme Health Academy. Make some friends.
It is a blessing. It's a great place to be. It's a super sacred place. And I feel like everyone in there is super honoring of other people and their journey. I love it. And we're all learning together.
It's cool. Yeah. It's a great
We're all
place.
in it together.
That's right. So we'll put a link to that. That is at extremehealthacademy.com. We'll put a link to that in this particular show page. I'm not sure what number that is going to be, but I probably, if you're listening to this right now, I probably said it at the beginning of the show. So, so love you guys. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. And
super fun. Hope to see you guys in the academy, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome.
We will catch you
on the next episode.
Good.
That was good.
Yeah, thanks. No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition.